The campus diner smelled of fries and coffee, filled with the chatter of students unwinding after a long day of classes. The neon sign outside flickered faintly, glowing red against the night sky, and the warmth inside stood in sharp contrast to the chill of the autumn air. The booths were packed, students laughed loudly, couples leaned close, and groups of friends passed fries across the table. It was a place that seemed alive, a place that felt like the very heartbeat of student life. But on this night, that heartbeat faltered for just a moment, when she walked in. The new girl. Nobody knew her name yet. Nobody knew where she had come from, or why she had transferred halfway through the semester. All they knew was that she carried herself differently. Her steps were quiet but firm, her eyes sharp but distant, her expression calm yet unreadable. She didn't glance around nervously the way most new students would. Instead, she walked straight toward the counter, ordered her food, and sat down alone at a booth near the window. Her solitude stood out, and so did she. The whispers started almost immediately. "That's the new girl, right? She doesn't talk to anyone. I heard she moved from overseas. She looks like she doesn't even want to be here." Curiosity lingered in the air, but with curiosity came cruelty. At the far corner of the diner sat three boys, known troublemakers, infamous for their arrogance and sharp tongues. They were not just students, they were self-appointed rulers of the social scene, boys who loved attention and thrived on intimidation. Everyone knew their names. Everyone knew their reputation. They were the type who found entertainment in making others uncomfortable, in mocking weaknesses, in testing boundaries. And tonight, their eyes landed on her. She ate quietly, not looking up, not reacting to the chatter around her. Her tray was simple: fries, a sandwich, and a soda. She wasn't dressed to impress. A plain hoodie, worn jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. But her simplicity only made her stand out more in a room full of students who craved to be noticed. One of the boys nudged the other, smirking, and nodded toward her. "Easy target," he muttered. They stood, their laughter already bubbling before they even reached her booth. The first words they threw at her were coated with mockery. "Hey new girl, you too shy to sit with the rest of us? Or you think you're better than everyone?" She kept her gaze down, dipping a fry into ketchup. Silence was her only answer. That silence, however, only fueled their desire to push harder. They leaned closer, tossing cruel remarks about her clothes, her hair, her lack of friends. Their voices grew louder, enough for nearby tables to notice. Some students looked away, uncomfortable, but nobody spoke up. Nobody ever did. She remained still, calm, as though their words barely touched her. But when one of the boys reached forward and slid her tray toward himself, laughing as if it were the funniest joke in the world, her hand shot out instinctively. She gripped the edge of the tray with surprising strength, and as she did, the sleeve of her hoodie shifted upward. For the first time, something else entered the scene: the tattoo on her wrist. It was small, but powerful. A black ink design, sharp lines interwoven with symbols not just decorative but meaningful. It wasn't the kind of tattoo students wore to look cool. This was a combat tattoo, the kind carried by those who had endured training, missions, survival. Those who had lived through experiences most people could never imagine. The boy holding the tray froze for a second, confused. He didn't understand the meaning of it, but others in the room did. A few students gasped softly. A few whispered. A hush swept through the diner. Her eyes finally lifted, and when they met his, the laughter died in his throat. Her voice was quiet, almost too quiet, but firm enough to shake him. "I said, that's mine." 4 words, no more. But those words carried a weight that none of them had expected. It wasn't just her voice. It was the way she sat, the way her posture shifted, the way her gaze held steady without flinching. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was something else, something dangerous, something unshakable. The tattoo on her wrist told a story of discipline and survival, and even though the boys didn't fully grasp it, they felt it. They laughed nervously, trying to cover their discomfort, but the act was weaker now. The leader set the tray back down, muttering something under his breath, and they backed away. For the first time in a long time, their arrogance faltered. And the diner, filled with students who had been watching silently, exhaled collectively. The new girl had not only stood her ground, she had silenced the kings of the diner without even raising her voice. But that night was only the beginning of her story. The real challenge wasn't standing up to bullies. She had done that before, in different places, in harsher ways. The real challenge was what followed. Because strength can isolate as much as it can protect. In the days after the diner incident, whispers followed her wherever she went. Students stared at her tattoo, at the quiet way she carried herself. Some looked at her with respect, some with fear. Teachers noticed too. She wasn't invisible anymore, but visibility came at a cost. She wasn't seen as a normal student. She was seen as someone dangerous, someone untouchable. And that was not what she wanted. She hadn't transferred to this campus to be feared. She had come here to escape the weight of her past, to find peace, to live like everyone else. She had left behind nights filled with drills, training fields where mistakes were punished, missions that left scars deeper than ink could tell. She wanted laughter, friendships, a chance to breathe without looking over her shoulder. But instead, she found herself eating alone, walking alone, studying alone. The combat tattoo on her wrist, once a symbol of survival, had become a wall between her and the world she longed to be part of. Nights in her dorm room were long and heavy. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, her thoughts replaying the diner incident over and over. Had she done the right thing? Should she have stayed quiet? Should she have hidden the tattoo better? She remembered the way the boys had looked at her, the flicker of fear in their eyes. She didn't want to be feared. Not anymore. But fear was all most people saw. Still, life has its way of testing us in unexpected ways. Weeks later, as she walked across campus, she saw the same 3 boys sitting outside the library. Their laughter was subdued, their voices low. One had his wrist in a cast, another a bruise across his cheek. Something had happened, something she didn't need details to understand. Life had humbled them in ways no confrontation ever could. She could have walked away, let them stew in their shame. But she didn't. She walked up to them. They stiffened immediately, ready for anger or ridicule. Instead, she simply said, "You don't need to keep breaking people down to feel strong. It doesn't make you strong. It only makes you empty." Then she walked away, leaving them with her words, not her fists. In the weeks that followed, her life began to change slowly. A few students, curious and brave, started to approach her. At first, they asked simple questions, about classes, about books, about music. Then slowly, cautiously, they asked about her past. She didn't tell them everything. Some stories were too heavy, too private. But she shared enough. Enough to show them that she was not dangerous, not untouchable. She was human. She was someone who had known struggle, someone who still carried pain, someone who wanted nothing more than kindness and peace. By the end of the semester, the girl who had walked into the diner alone and silenced bullies with nothing but her gaze was no longer just the new girl. She had become someone others admired, not because of her combat tattoo, but because of her resilience, her compassion, and her willingness to extend kindness even when she had every reason to turn bitter. And those 3 boys? They changed too. Slowly, subtly, but noticeably. They no longer mocked others with the same cruelty. Sometimes, they even looked at her with a quiet guilt that suggested her words had left a permanent mark. Her story is a reminder that true strength is not in the fight, not in the ability to overpower others, but in the choice to rise above cruelty, to show compassion where hatred is easy, to let silence and discipline speak louder than violence. So, if this story touched your heart, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us, what does strength mean to you? Have you ever seen kindness change someone's life? Your words could inspire someone else. And if you want to hear more powerful stories like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and join us here on Be Kind Always, where every story reminds us that courage and compassion go hand in hand.